My father chose her over me, so I built an empire while he lost everything. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? Like, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you'll never be enough? That was my entire childhood. My name is David, and this is the story of how my father's favoritism destroyed our family, broke my heart, and ultimately led to the most unexpected twist of fate you could imagine. Before we dive deep into this journey, let me tell you something. This isn't just a story about rejection, it's about resilience, about proving everyone wrong, and about how karma works in the most brutal ways possible. So stick around till the end, because what happened to my father, well, let's just say he never saw it coming. I was 8 years old when my sister Emily was born. I still remember that day vividly, the excitement of becoming a big brother, the way I practiced holding a baby doll so I wouldn't drop her, the dreams I had about teaching her everything I knew. My mother was glowing with happiness, and my father, Richard, seemed proud to be expanding our family. For a brief moment, everything felt perfect. But that moment didn't last long. The change wasn't immediate. It was subtle at first, like a slow-acting poison that seeps into your system before you even realize you've been infected. My father started spending more time in Emily's nursery. Okay, that's normal for a newborn, right? But then months turned into years, and the pattern only intensified. Every school play I had, every soccer game I played, every achievement I earned, it all took a back seat to whatever Emily was doing. I remember my 10th birthday. I had been begging my father to come to my basketball championship game. Our team had fought hard all season, and I was the point guard. I wanted him to see me play so badly. The game was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. That morning, I woke up buzzing with excitement, imagining my father cheering from the stands. But at breakfast, Emily mentioned she wanted to go to the zoo. Just a casual comment from a 2-year-old. And just like that, my father decided they would skip my game to take her to see the animals. "But Dad, it's the championship," I pleaded, my voice cracking with desperation. "David, you'll have other games. Your sister wants to see the pandas, and they're only here for another week," he said without even looking up at his coffee. My mother tried to intervene. "Richard, this is important to David. Can't we go to the zoo tomorrow?" "I already promised Emily," he snapped back. "Besides, it's just a kid's game." Just a kid's game. Those 4 words echoed in my head as I played that afternoon. We won, by the way. I scored the winning basket in the last 30 seconds. My teammates lifted me up, the crowd went wild, and my coach said I played the best game of my life. But when I looked into the stands, the seat I had reserved for my father was empty. My mother was there, cheering and crying with pride, but the person whose approval I craved most, he was at the zoo, buying cotton candy for my baby sister. That became the pattern of my life. Every milestone, every achievement, every moment that should have been mine, it was all overshadowed by Emily's mere existence. When I made the honor roll in 6th grade, my father barely glanced at my report card because Emily had just said her first full sentence. When I won the school science fair in 8th grade, the celebration dinner got postponed because Emily had a dance recital for her preschool class. Not even a real recital, just a casual performance for parents. But somehow, that was more important than my academic achievement. The worst part? Emily was a great kid. She didn't ask for this favoritism. She wasn't spoiled or bratty despite getting everything she wanted. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me with these sad, confused eyes, like she knew something was wrong but couldn't quite understand what. She would try to include me in things, share her toys, ask me to play with her. And I wanted to be a good brother, I really did. But every time I looked at her, all I could see was the reason my father didn't love me anymore. High school was when things got really ugly. I threw myself into everything: academics, sports, part-time jobs, volunteer work. I became obsessed with being perfect, thinking that if I just achieved enough, worked hard enough, proved myself worthy enough, my father would finally notice me. I graduated as valedictorian, got a full scholarship to a prestigious university, won multiple awards in competitions. And you know what my father said at my graduation? "That's great, son. Hey, did you know Emily got accepted into that advanced learning program for gifted elementary students? She's only in 3rd grade and already reading at 7th grade level." I didn't even respond. I just walked away. My mother found me an hour later, sitting alone in my car, acceptance letter to Stanford in my hand, tears streaming down my face. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm so proud of you. You're going to do amazing things." But I didn't want her to be proud. I wanted him to care. College was my escape. I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that worried my professors. While other students were partying and enjoying their youth, I was in the library until 3 in the morning, building businesses, networking, learning everything I could about finance and entrepreneurship. I started my first company when I was 19, a small tech startup that created productivity software for businesses. It failed within a year. I lost every penny I had invested. Most people would have given up, but failure only fueled my fire. I started a second company, then a third. I worked jobs during the day to fund my ventures at night. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. My roommates thought I was crazy. Maybe I was, but I had something to prove, not just to my father, but to myself. I needed to know that I was worth something, that I mattered, that my existence had value beyond being Emily's disappointing older brother. During those years, I barely went home, maybe once or twice a year for major holidays, and even then, I'd leave as soon as possible. Every visit was the same painful reminder of my place in the family hierarchy. My father would spend 5 minutes asking about school before spending the next 5 hours doting on Emily, helping her with homework, attending her soccer practices, planning her future. Everything I had begged him to do with me, he did effortlessly with her. The breaking point came during Christmas of my senior year. I had just secured a major investment for my fourth startup, $3 million from a venture capital firm that saw potential in my vision. It was the validation I had been working toward for years. I came home excited to share the news, thinking maybe this would finally impress my father. Maybe this would finally make him see me. I walked in to find the house decorated with banners celebrating Emily's acceptance to a prestigious high school. My father was beaming, telling everyone who would listen about how proud he was, how special his daughter was, how she was going to change the world. I stood in the doorway with my news, and I realized something devastating. No matter what I achieved, it would never be enough. Emily could do the bare minimum and receive a parade. I could move mountains and get a distracted nod. So I left. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell or cry or demand attention. I simply put my bag back in my car and drove back to campus. My mother called me 17 times. I didn't answer. My father didn't call at all. That was the moment I decided something. I was done trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it. Instead, I would pour all that energy, all that desperate need for validation, into building something so massive, so undeniable that the whole world would have to acknowledge my worth. If my father couldn't see my value, the entire business world would. The next 5 years were a blur of relentless work. My fourth startup gained traction, and I sold it for $20 million when I was 25. I immediately invested everything into my next venture, a financial technology platform that revolutionized how small businesses manage their operations. This one was different. This one exploded. Within 2 years, we had over 50,000 clients, and within 3 years, we had expanded internationally. By the time I turned 30, my company was valued at over $800 million. I was featured in Forbes, Business Insider, and countless financial publications. I had built an empire from nothing, fueled by rejection and determination. I bought a penthouse in Manhattan, drove luxury cars, wore custom suits, and attended galas with some of the most successful people in the world. From the outside, I had everything. But inside, there was still that little boy who just wanted his father to come to his basketball game. I kept minimal contact with my family during this time. My mother and I talked regularly. She was proud of me, always had been. Emily and I had developed a cordial relationship. She had grown into a smart, kind young woman studying pre-med at college. She never understood why our relationship was strained, and I never had the heart to tell her it wasn't her fault. But my father? We spoke maybe once or twice a year, always brief, always superficial. Then, one rainy Tuesday in October, my mother called with news that would change everything. My father had lost his job. The company he had worked for over 30 years had been acquired, and they were eliminating his department. At 62 years old, he was suddenly unemployed with minimal savings and a mortgage he could barely afford. The man who had spent decades prioritizing Emily's expenses over practical financial planning was now facing potential bankruptcy. I won't lie to you, my first feeling was satisfaction. Karma had finally caught up to him. The man who had made me feel worthless was now struggling while I thrived. But my mother's voice was filled with genuine worry. Emily had just started medical school with massive tuition bills. They had taken out loans expecting my father's steady income would continue. Now, everything was falling apart. "David, I know things have been difficult between you and your father, but we need help. I wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate." This was my moment. Everything I had been working toward, everything I had unconsciously preparing for, it all led to this. I had the power now. I had the resources, the influence, the control. The man who ignored me my entire life was now asking for my help through my mother. The old David, the one who craved his father's approval, would have jumped at this opportunity. Finally, a chance to prove my worth. Finally, a reason for him to be proud. But I wasn't that David anymore. I had been forged in the fire of neglect, hardened by years of being second best, and I had emerged as someone who didn't need his validation anymore. I said, tell him to sell the house, downsize, cut expenses. That's what any financial advisor would recommend. "David, please. You know that house has been in his family for generations. And Emily's tuition isn't my responsibility, Mom. Dad made his choices. He chose to spend everything on her private schools, her tutors, her extracurriculars. He chose to neglect retirement planning because he was too busy being the perfect father to his favorite child. These are consequences of Dad's decisions." The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "When did you become so cold?" Her words hit harder than I expected. "I'm not cold, Mom. I'm just done setting myself on fire to keep people warm who wouldn't even notice if I froze to death." I hung up and tried to go back to work, but her question haunted me. Had I become cold? Or had I simply learned to protect myself? For days I wrestled with this decision. Part of me wanted to help, not for my father, but for my mother and even for Emily, who had never asked to be caught in this dysfunctional dynamic. But another part of me, the wounded part that had never healed, wanted my father to finally understand what his neglect had cost. Then, 3 weeks later, I got another call. My father had had a heart attack. Stress-induced, the doctor said. He survived, but the medical bills were crushing. They had to sell the house anyway. My parents moved into a small apartment. My father couldn't find work at his age with his health issues. Emily had to take out additional loans and pick up extra shifts at a hospital to help with expenses. And me? I watched it all happen from my penthouse, checking in with my mother weekly, but offering no financial assistance. People at the office started to notice the family emergency, asking if everything was okay, if I needed time off. I told them everything was fine. Because in some twisted way, it was. My father was finally experiencing what it felt like to fail, to struggle, to not be enough. But the moment that changed everything came 6 months after his heart attack. My mother called, and for the first time in years, she sounded angry with me. "Your father asked about you yesterday," she said. "Do you know what he said? He said he finally understands why you've been so distant. He said he was a terrible father to you, and he deserves everything that's happening to him now. He said his biggest regret isn't losing the house or his health, it's losing his son." I expected to feel vindicated by those words. This was what I had wanted, wasn't it? For him to finally acknowledge what he had done, to finally feel remorse. But instead, I felt hollow, empty. Because the truth was, no amount of his suffering would heal the wounds from my childhood. No amount of revenge would give me back those lost years, those missed moments, that absent father. It's too late for regrets. I told my mother. Maybe, but it's not too late for forgiveness. Not for him, David, for you. Because holding on to this anger is destroying you just as much as his favoritism destroyed your childhood. After she hung up, I sat in my office overlooking the Manhattan skyline, thinking about success and revenge and what it all meant. I had everything I thought I wanted. I had proven myself to the world. I had built an empire. I had won. But I had also lost something important along the way. My compassion for self, my ability to be vulnerable, my connection to my own humanity. That night, I made a decision. Not because my father deserved help, not because I had forgiven him, but because I needed to break this cycle of pain before it consumed me entirely. I set up a trust fund for my parents' living expenses and medical bills. I paid off Emily's tuition loans. I didn't do it publicly, didn't use it as leverage, didn't demand apologies or gratitude. I did it silently through my lawyer and told my mother to never tell my father where the money came from. "But he should know you helped," she protested. "No," I said firmly. "This isn't about him knowing. This is about me choosing to be better than the pain that raised me." 2 months later, I got a letter. Actual handwritten letter, not an email or text. It was from my father. His handwriting was shaky, evidence of his declining health, but the words were clear. "David, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to say it anyway. I failed you. I can make excuses about being overwhelmed with a new baby, about Emily needing extra attention because she was sickly as a child, about being scared I would fail as a father, so I overcompensated with her. But the truth is, I took you for granted. You were so capable, so strong, so independent that I convinced myself you didn't need me the way she did. I was wrong. Every child needs their father, and I wasn't there for you when you needed me most. I watched you grow into an incredible man despite me, not because of me. Your mother told me not to tell you this, but I know about the trust fund. I know what you did for us. You didn't have to. God knows I didn't earn it. But thank you. Not just for the money, but for being a better man than I ever taught you to be. I'm proud of you, son. I know those words are decades too late, and I know they can't fix what I broke, but they're true. I'm so incredibly proud of you. Love, Dad." I read that letter 17 times. I cried for the first time in years, deep, gut-wrenching sobs for the childhood I lost, for the relationship we never had, for all the years wasted in pain and anger. But somewhere in those tears was also release. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of something that might eventually become peace.
Here's the thing about revenge. It's not what they show you in movies. It's not satisfying or cleansing or empowering. Watching my father struggle didn't heal my wounds. Achieving massive success didn't fill the void his absence created. The real revenge, I realized, wasn't in his suffering. It was in my refusal to become like him. It was in breaking the cycle. It was in choosing compassion even when bitterness felt justified. Today, my relationship with my father is complicated. We talk occasionally, careful conversations that avoid deep waters. He asks about my business, I ask about his health. We're not close, probably never will be. Too much damage, too many years lost. But we're not enemies anymore either. Emily tells me he keeps articles about my company in his scrapbook, shows them to anyone who will listen, tells people about his successful son. It's strange. He's proud of me now that the whole world validates my worth. But part of me has moved past needing that pride. Last month, I established a foundation that provides scholarships to first-generation college students and kids from broken homes. Kids who, like me, had to build themselves from nothing. Kids who know what it's like to feel invisible in their own families. That's my real legacy. Not the money, not the success, not the empire. It's using my pain to help others heal from theirs. So, what's the moral of this story? Is it that hard work pays off? That success is the best revenge? That karma catches up with everyone eventually? Maybe. But I think it's something deeper than that. I think it's about understanding that you can't build genuine happiness on a foundation of someone else's suffering, not even someone who hurt you deeply. I thought my father's downfall would make me feel whole. Instead, it just made me realize how much of my life I had wasted being angry. My father's favoritism shaped me, broke me, and ultimately forged me into who I am today. I'm successful not just despite his neglect, but in some twisted way because of it. That pain drove me to heights I might never have reached otherwise. But it also cost me years of peace, relationships I pushed away, and a part of my soul I can never fully recover. Was it worth it? I honestly don't know. Some days I think yes, look at what I've built. Other days I would trade everything just to have had one childhood memory of my father cheering for me, truly seeing me, choosing me. If you're watching this and you relate to my story, if you felt invisible in your own family, overlooked, undervalued, or second best, I want you to know something. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Not your parents, not your siblings, not anyone's. The validation you're desperately seeking from people who can't give it, you have to learn to give it to yourself. Build your empire, chase your dreams, prove everyone wrong, but do it for you, not to spite them. Because a life lived in reaction to someone else's rejection isn't freedom. It's just another kind of prison. And to the parents watching this, please, please don't make my father's mistakes. You might think your kids don't notice the favoritism, that they don't keep score, that they understand. They notice. They keep score. And those wounds last forever. Every child deserves to feel chosen, celebrated, and valued. Not just the easy one, not just the youngest one, not just the one who reminds you of yourself. Every single child in your family deserves your best. As for my father, he's 63 now. Living quietly in that small apartment, his health declining. Sometimes I wonder if he lies awake at night replaying all those moments he chose Emily over me. Sometimes I wonder if he regrets it, really regrets it, beyond what any letter can express. But mostly, I've stopped wondering, because his regret or lack thereof doesn't define me anymore. I defined myself. I built myself, and while he was absent during that process, I made sure I wouldn't be absent from my own life. That's the real ending to this story. Not revenge, not reconciliation, not a perfect Hollywood conclusion, just a man who survived his childhood, built something meaningful despite the pain, and learned that sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to pass that pain forward. And you know what? That's enough.